Question number 10, Sir William Sewell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement on job creation? We can affect things like labour laws, and if you look at the jobs creation that we have been promoting, the SkyCity Convention Centre, more mining and exploration, Australian companies coming back, they will create jobs.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Speaker, no, I don't stand by that statement because that wasn't my statement, but I do stand by my full quote, which was, we can affect things like labour laws, whatever it might be, and if you look at the job creation things that we've been promoting, SkyCity as a convention centre, more mining, exploration, irrigation, Australian companies coming back, Labor have rejected every one of those, and so have plenty of other people being opposed, but they will create jobs. I stand by my answer because that is what Labor are opposed to, all of these things which create jobs for New Zealanders.
Sir William Sewell.
Is his government incapable of coming up with a plan to create jobs that does not come at the cost of eliminating the right of employees, increased social cost of gambling, and further environmental degradation and low wages?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no.
Sir William Sewell.
By how much has unemployment decreased since he promised to do something about it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've been promising for a long time to make sure New Zealand grows jobs, and we created 60,000 jobs in the last 2 years.
I apologise to the Prime Minister. Order. I guess the members want to hear the answer to the question their colleague asked. The noise today has been unacceptable, and I don't blame any group of members in the House just across the House, except maybe I exclude the members at the back who don't normally make too much noise. But so I'd ask members, please be reasonable. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, I didn't hear the answer.
Mr. Speaker, I've been saying for quite a long time that the country needs to create jobs. We created 60,000 in the last 2 years. We have quite a significant drop in those on the unemployment benefit from the last few years. And I remember quite clearly then when there are a number of commentators saying that unemployment in this country would rise to 10 or 11%. I think Phil Goff was cheering them on at the time. That never proved to be right.
Sir William Sewell.
If the 18,000 new people in the labour force are looking for jobs because, as he said, the economy is coming right, then why was that half of them couldn't find a job this quarter?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, what is true is New Zealand has one of the higher labour participation rates in the world, much higher than Australia. Our participation rate is 68.2%. Australia is 65%. Or to put it another way, the employment rate in New Zealand as a proportion of the population is greater than New Zealand and Australia.
Question number supplementary question, Sir William Sewell.
What initiative has his government taken to ensure that jobs currently advertised that require particular skills have been translated to investment and training for those looking for jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the best person to probably answer that would be the Minister of Tertiary Education, but I can tell you on his behalf that enormous amounts of money have been poured into a variety of different training schemes and actually upgrading the quality of those training schemes over recent years. The government's had a number of other programs running from LSV right through to Community Max and Job Ops. The government's been significant increases in training for Christchurch, including $42 million we announced last year to go into upgrading the skills sector. The truth is that if we want to get more people into skills and into training, then we have to do a better job of making sure those 1 in 5 young New Zealanders who leave school unable to read and write properly do get the proper literacy and numeracy skills they require. That was something that the Labor government failed those people, and particularly that members' community, and he knows it.
Supplementary.
Sir William Sewell.
2 years ago he said that the unemployment rate was a lagging indicator, and 2 weeks ago he said in terms of the unemployment rate it is a very weird one at the moment. Given what it really is a reflection of his government's failure to stimulate and grow the economy, when will he admit that this government has failed to provide any kind of a future for New Zealanders, let alone a brighter one?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No.
Supplementary question, Sir William Sewell.
Does he agree that his trail of broken promises merely highlights his lack of economic leadership, given that unemployment forecasts this year were wrong, number of jobs expected to be created this quarter was wrong, there are 55,000 more people in the last 3.5 years, almost double the number of people on the employment benefit since National took office in 2008?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think it's worthy of just taking a moment to look at some of the points that Labor have been making today in answer to the member's specific question. When the Christchurch earthquake came, that cost this economy about $20 billion, Labor argued that the government should do a lot about it. Today, they want to ignore that impact on the economy. When the global financial crisis came, Labor at their campaign launch signed up the deposit guarantee scheme.
Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
The questioner was very clear as to the questions he wanted answered.
Order. Forgive me. The member will resume his seat. Order. Member will resume his seat. Order.
I haven't given my point of order yet.
Order. I don't need to hear any point of order. If the member had listened to the question asked, he would have heard a question that was barely in order, talked about the trail of broken promises and all sorts of things. The Prime Minister is at liberty to answer it any way he chooses. A member who asks a question like that deserves to get any answer, almost as long as it's within the bounds of acceptable language in the House, any answer they choose to give. That kind of question deserves nothing more than that, because it was just a litany of views of the questioner. So now we're hearing the Prime Minister's views, and I invite him. Well, I'm still on my feet.
All right. Well, perhaps...
I will now hear the member's point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I assumed you'd finished your first ruling. My point of order is, if that is correct with respect to the question, then why did you not rule it out? Instead of turning this place into a farce by allowing the Prime Minister to give us history lessons.
Order. The reason why I don't is I don't want to rule that member's questions out all the time.
Point of order.
The Right Honourable Winston
Mr.
Peters.
Speaker, if you've got concerns about my questions, then please raise them at the time rather than that sort of lesson, because we can soon pass a motion no confidence
The member will
like that.
resume his seat immediately. He should just have listened to the question asked. Now, I could have ruled it out indeed, but I don't want to do that, because members should learn, if they don't want to get the Minister's view back, an equal political statement back, don't ask that kind of question. I'd rather let the House flow. I could rule, but I'd be ruled today. I probably would have had to rule out at least half the questions being asked, because most of them contained more statement than question. And the standing orders don't allow that. And so I would have had to be ruling out at least half of them. And I don't want to do that. I want the order. The member's skating on thin ice now. And I just remind him that the remedy is in the hands of questioners. Ask straight questions, and I'll insist on straight answers. But the Prime Minister is still answering that question, should he wish to. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, so let me summarise these things very briefly, because when all of these particular issues came along, the global financial crisis, the funding requirement for New Zealand deposit takers, the Christchurch earthquakes, all of those issues, Labor argued that this government should throw enormous resources and support. And today, on Planet Labor, none of those things existed. That is why they have no credibility at all with the New Zealand public. They are the Blues of political parties, and we over here are the Crusaders.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. I apologise to the member, but I want to hear the member's point of order. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, if that is allowed as an answer, then frankly anything can be an answer now.
Order. Not at all, and the member will cease arguing with me. I just invite the member to listen to questions. I listen very carefully to questions, and if members want to avoid that kind of answer, ask a question instead of making a political statement. That's what question time is about. But I'm not going to deprive this side of the House. If one side of the House is going to make political statements, I'm not going to deprive the other side of the House from making political statements in return. But I would encourage members to ask straight questions, because I'll do my best to get answers to those straight questions. Members will notice now that where there's a question on the order paper that seeks information, ministers give it. And today, when I hadn't heard clearly the information sought in relation to question number 8, I asked the member to provide the information. The minister pointed out that she had, and I'd missed it, and I apologise for that. But where straight questions are asked, I will make sure ministers give answers to them. But today, questions, I've got to say, have been pretty loose, and it's been extremely difficult, therefore, to pin ministers down in their answers. But that's where the remedy lies. Ask straight questions rather than trying to make clever political statements.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, Mr. Siu asked in an earlier question, had unemployment risen? And that was a very clear question, very direct. He got no answer at all.
Order.
You allowed that to happen,
order.
right?
And I won't take any more on this. If that's what the member had asked, we would have got an answer. But it wasn't what the member asked. The member should listen to all the elements, the whole question, not just to one bit of it. I, as Speaker, have to listen to the entire question. And that's where so many members get into trouble, because they can't help adding a bit at the end of it. And that then gives the minister an excuse to add political comment to their answer. And I can't prevent them. But a member asking a straight question, the member will recollect the Honourable Trevor Mallard questioning the Minister of Finance. And I insisted on the Minister of Finance answering the question, because it was perfectly, it was a perfectly straight question about the handling of current account data. Perfectly straight question. And so remedies in members' hands. And we're not going to waste more time on this. Question number, I think we're up to question number 11, Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister for Social Development.